This episode of the LCTV News is brought to you by Encompass Health, Rehabilitation Hospital of New England, and North Shore Community College. If you have the will to attend college, we have the way for you to earn your degree.
Good morning and welcome to LCTV News. As we hit the official start of fall, there was news on the community and law enforcement front. On the lowdown, we welcomed Dani Armini, the 8th Essex District State Rep, to discuss her first few months in office and goals for the future, as well as the planning department for a fall update. Here's the news for Friday, September 22nd, 2023. In response to the recent violence, the Demarcus YMCA will be offering free memberships for students in 7th and 8th grade beginning on September 25th. The initiative, approved earlier this week by the Board of Directors, gives kids full access to all of the Y's resources, from a fitness center, music room, and youth development center, to name a few. The goal of this program is to get youth engaged in positive activities and give them a safe place to go after school. Their varied programs also offer kids the chance to try something new, especially if they are not in an after-school club or on a sports team. In addition to the facilities, hot meals are served daily from 3 to 5 p.m. This offer is not limited to public schools or Lynn students. Those who attend St. Mary's or KIPP, as well as Lynn residents who attend school outside the city, can participate. To sign up, an adult must come and sign off and provide at least 2 numbers in case they need to be contacted. The Rainbow Adult Health Care Center received a citation from the city in recognition of their 5-year anniversary. With the focus on Haitian and Southeast Asian communities, they have expanded from a small center to a multi-city resource in just a few short years.
My name is John Samao, the marketing director here at Rainbow Adult Healthcare in Lynn. We have an anniversary today, 5 years. We established back in 2018. And today is celebration. We want to share testimonials and most importantly our services. We've expanded all the way to Boston and all the way to Lowell, Massachusetts. When we first started back in 2018, we only had about 40 people. Till this day we have 198. So it's crazy to see how far we've come. The center was sensitive to the Southeast Asian community and also the Haitian community. We want to share our tradition, our culture, and get to know other culture as well. Who would have known that Cambodian and Haitian community can come together in one center? We invited the mayor, the rest of the team over there in Lynn at the City Hall, our local politicians, elected officials, and most importantly, the members of the community.
I can't believe that in just 5 years, you have grown and built a program of this caliber, of this size, of this beautiful reflection of the city of Lynn. We are so proud, and from the bottom of our heart, we extend you our warmest support and most sincere congratulations.
On behalf of Council President Welsh, Vice President Chakutis, Councilor Nett, and Councilor Allenson, we want to congratulate you on 5 years from the entire City Council. Congratulations to everyone.
Thank you. We just want to let the community know that we're here, and we would love to welcome you here to see what we've been up to, and most importantly, to continue the services to help folks live a long and happy life.
Two suspects were arrested on Monday the 18th in connection with the September 13th Commercial Street shooting. 21-year-old Mark Pali was picked up by the Lynn Police Gang Detectives Unit on charges of defacing a firearm of its serial number and unlawful possession of ammunition, while 23-year-old Anthony Gutierrez was arrested in Salem on counts of carrying a firearm without a license, illegal possession of ammunition, firing a firearm within 500 feet of a building, and assault with a dangerous weapon with intent to murder. They were arraigned in district court that same day and are currently being held without bail. The Lynn Police Department would like to thank the Salem Police Department, the Massachusetts State Police Violent Fugitive Apprehension Section, and the public with their tips and video footage for their assistance in the investigation. Gala hosted an opening reception for their Hispanic Excellence exhibit on the 15th, coinciding with the start of Hispanic Heritage Month. A mix of art, dance, and food gave attendees a taste of all the ethnicities and cultures represented in the Hispanic community.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Michelle Guzman, and I am so happy for you guys to be here. Mi nombre es Michelle Guzman. Estoy muy contenta de que ustedes estén aquí apoyando a sus niños. But also coming and celebrate the beginning of the Hispanic Heritage Month. And in this world of art, we encounter people from different backgrounds, and Lynn has a lot of people from different parts of the world, so it's beauty of that.
Hi, my name is Ellery Sanchez, and welcome to the Hispanic Excellence Exhibition. Today, I'm creating two pieces called The Fog, with its dense and opaque nature, often obscures our vision and hampers our ability to see clearly. Similarly, in our lives, we may encounter situations where we feel lost, uncertain, and unable to navigate our way forward. I'm participating in the Excellence Exhibition today to support the Hispanic community.
We are Cultura Latina Dance Academy. We're a nonprofit. Today we're going to be doing a repertoire slightly different. We are Latino focused, but we also do ballet and Latin, and it's very special for us so that our dancers are well-rounded.
Come see some of our works of this wonderful exhibition and all the wonderful artists that we have here today.
The Department of Elementary and Secondary Education released the 2023 MCAS results on Tuesday the 19th, and results are still slowly recovering from the pandemic. Massachusetts is continuing to see a rebound since the pandemic, even as other reports indicate a continued national decline in performance. While overall scores are still lower than 2019 results in math and ELA, they were level or improved when compared to last year. In Lynn, of the 6,559 students, 19% scored meeting or exceeding expectations in ELA, with 14% landing in that range for math. Science saw the highest percentage of met or exceeded expectations at 21%, but only 2,245 students participated in that section. Mayor Nicholson and the City of Lynn held a community outreach meeting in the wake of the recent violence. Community members got the chance to hear from several speakers before the floor was open for questions. Here's a clip.
You want to engage in health-promoting behaviors. Get up and go to the gym if that's something that you like to do. Now is not the time to start a new day of going to the gym or saying, I'm going to get into shape today. Now is a time to really lean into our routines or things that we already do that help us to feel better. Having a cup of tea and reading a book, knitting or crocheting, going to church or synagogue, if that's what is helpful for you. Try to get enough sleep. Limit your caffeine intake and really focus on making sure that you are well rested so that you can support the others around you as well. And finding that balance in our lives, trying to make sure that we're not working too much or doing things to distract ourselves so much from how we're feeling, but really leaning into that and having these hard conversations like we are having tonight.
To watch the full meeting, go to linntv.org. Lynn residents may now have an easier time obtaining a Class B driver's license through a collaboration between the Department of Public Works and Mass Hire. This would allow residents access to a wider array of jobs, including, but not limited to, DPW mechanics, Lynn Water and Sewer Commission openings, and maintenance workers. Mass Hire will help recruit and train potential candidates by streamlining the process of obtaining the necessary certifications. Based on income criteria, residents could obtain the license for little to no cost. For the link and to learn more, visit linntv.org. As part of Trails and Sales, a series of tours at Pine Grove Cemetery were organized, one of which took place this past Sunday, the 17th. Highlighting the oldest part of the cemetery, the original architect and graves of abolitionists were shown.
Hi, I'm Julia Green, and I lead these tours of Pine Grove Cemetery here in Lynn, Massachusetts. And how I got into this was I realized I was looking for abolitionists in Lynn, and I couldn't find them until I came to this cemetery. I thought they were at the Quaker Cemetery. And then I thought, what an incredible cemetery, and it should be on the National Register. And so I worked to help get this cemetery on the National Register. As a historic district with something like 28 historical artifacts in it. So yeah, it's a whole district because there's so much here, but it is on the National Register. And then a woman by the name of Mary Turan, who used to be here in Lynn, had connected with Trails and Sales, and she said, why don't you do a tour? So that's how I got into these tours back in 2016, and I've been doing them ever since. So we have Pine Grove History 1 and a Pine Grove History 2. We're also doing an abolitionist tour with the GAR in early October. Come down and learn about this cemetery, all the great history, all the great industrialists, and even just how famous it is because it was designed by one of the most preeminent landscape architects in the United States at the time. So they decided they would create a private cemetery, and they went to Henry S. Dearborn. We feel like a cemetery should be a place that's inviting, that's in the middle of nature. So that was the Victorian idea of the cemetery. And Dearborn was at the front of this. Everything's curving, and it was to make things seem like infinity. Nothing is on a straight line.
The Lynn commuter rail station is in the process of being rebuilt, and in the meantime, the MBTA wants to remind commuters of alternative modes of transportation. This includes the commuter rail from Swampscott, with the free shuttle bus operating between the two stations, bus route 456 to Salem Depot, with a temporary station being completed by the spring of 2024 in Lynn. There are several other bus options running from various points in the city, as well as the seasonal weekday ferry from Blossom Street Pier to Long Wharf. First up on the Lowdown, we welcome State Rep Jenny Armini to talk about her experience as a first-time representative and goals for the future. Hello and welcome back to the Lynn Lowdown. I'm Dani Vittori, and today we have on a special guest. You have on State Representative Jenny Armini for the 8th Essex District. Thanks for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me.
Great. So I'll start off with the first thing. You're a first-time rep, so what made you decide to run?
I love public service. I love serving the community. When Rep. Lori Ehrlich decided that she wasn't going to run again, she got a terrific job at FEMA. I said, this is for me. I'd done a lot of political work in the community, and I created an organization called Elect Blue that drew from Marblehead and Swampscott, and it was a natural fit. I'd also worked in Washington, worked on Beacon Hill. I've been in and around politics for a long time, but on the staff side, and so my skills are in this area, and I feel like if I'm going to contribute to the community, this would be the best way to do it.
And in your first few months, how has it been so far being on the rep side now as opposed to the staff side?
Yeah, it's different. It's very different, but you really, the opportunity to make change is so exciting. I've taken the approach of really using this time to learn and develop relationships. And, you don't walk into a place like the Massachusetts House of Representatives and tell them how to do their business. That's not gonna fly. So I've been, finding mentors, and the Lynn delegation, Senator Crichton, Reps Cahill and Capano, they've been amazing teachers. And so I've spent a lot of time learning.
Definitely. And you're seen out at a lot of events. You're very visible out in the community.
Right.
Why do you think that's so important to be really involved in the community you represent?
Well, that's where you connect with people. If you stayed in the office all day long, there's no way you would understand exactly what's going on in the community, what people are worried about, what they want you to do. I just feel like the more I'm out there, the better. Because that's how I learn, and then that's how I serve.
And serving, and what do you feel that you have learned talking to people and really going out and connecting?
So, in the 8th Essex District, it's so interesting. It's Marblehead, Swampscott, and Lynn, and it is coastal from top to bottom, right? Goes from the tip of Marblehead down to the Nahant Rotary. And so you can imagine people are really concerned about the effects of climate change. And particularly in, I would say, also in Lynn and Swampscott, Kings Beach is an enormous concern. Yeah. The beach has been closed about 90% of the summer, which is an absolute tragedy, especially for the people of Lynn. It is the only beach for this city of 100,000 people. And so I've spent a good amount of time getting up to speed on what the issues are and what our options are, and working with the mayor and our delegation and the state agencies to figure out a solution to this. So that's definitely a concern. Housing affordability, another concern, education. And when I'm out there talking to people, I hear their stories. This isn't just policy, right? These are people's lives.
Right. Yeah, and you actually led in perfectly to another question, because you're on committees and have sponsored bills that really do focus on global warming, climate change, environmental. That really has been your focus, which, as you just said, makes sense.
Right.
Given where you are.
Right, so I've sponsored, there's a bill, it's called the Future of Clean Heat, and that is to try and encourage the utilities to invest in what's called geothermal heating, using the Earth's temperature and water rather than fossil fuels. It's an emerging technology, but it's something we should definitely try. Another bill promotes the planting of trees, which doesn't sound like it has to do with climate change, but trees actually absorb carbon dioxide. They're a natural decarbonizer. So bills like that, I think, could be really helpful in our fight.
And as you are looking forward, like I said, you're a few months into your term, what are some sort of more long-term goals that you have as a rep?
Well, most definitely cleaning up Kings Beach. Yep. That is, and I hope it's not, to be honest, I hope it's not too long-term of a goal. I want it done today, ideally, but that's not going to happen. But it's getting it done as fast as possible. I would like to help with the state supporting housing creation, development, so that the prices of our housing can come down, and families can move back. Young people can move back to the district and build their families, and seniors can stay in the communities they've lived in their whole lives. And again, working on climate change and making sure that our coast is secure when we have, Hurricane Lee is on its way.
Yeah.
And, everyone has a pit in their stomach hoping that it doesn't hit us. But storms are getting more frequent and they're getting stronger. And so we need to be prepared for that.
Being prepared for everything that's coming, and even like you said with housing, like I'm very fortunate that I have come from a place of stability, but even I can't move out without having 4 roommates if I want to stay here.
Exactly. That's exactly right. And someone like you you've lived your whole life here, your family's here, you have a stake in this community. You're exactly the type of person we want to stay and build your life here.
Yeah.
And so we've got to figure out a way to build more housing, because that's really what it comes down to. We don't have enough, and that's why the prices are so high.
The supply and demand of it.
Yep. It's sadly that simple and that complicated.
Yeah, it's both. And you were mentioning too the way that you build mentorships and you learn from others.
Yeah.
In the State House. How's that going?
It's, I have to say, I honestly can't say enough about my colleagues. They have been incredibly warm, incredibly welcoming. I think some people have this image of, the House and politicians being sort of power hungry and menacing, and they are not like that at all. They've been very eager to help me learn, and I really value that.
Because it's very much, it's a team. Like you co-sponsor bills, you all need to work together to really get things done.
Well, that's exactly right. And when it comes to this particular part of the world, working together is especially helpful because, in Lynn, you have a lot of complex issues, and bringing the influence of someone like a Senator Creighton, who's chair of the Transportation Committee, with Rep. Dan Cahill, who's chair of the Environment and Natural Resources Committee, bringing together, their influence, their knowledge, just gets things done.
Really opening that line of communication.
Right. It's teamwork, really.
Yeah. It's realizing I may not know everything, but I know this, and this other person knows that, and then we combine it.
Well, and that's where humility comes in. And that's what I'm saying. You cannot walk into a legislature and tell people how to do their jobs. You've got to learn first, and you've got to listen. Listening is such an important part of this job. Listen more than talk.
I will ask you, though, what would you say has been one of sort of the highlights, I suppose, so far in your tenure as a rep?
Well, it hasn't been that long. It's only been, 8 months or so? 9 months? 8, 9 months? So, like I said, I've been spending more of my time learning, but the highlight is really building the relationships and getting, building the foundation to get things done. That's what I've enjoyed, and that's what I see as really valuable, but also getting to know the community at a deeper level. As you say, I love going out and going to events and talking to people. That's a highlight for me. That's what I get. I feed off that energy.
But that's a great quality for a rep.
Thank you.
You have to know the people and the places you're representing.
Absolutely.
As the entire delegation does.
Right. And, every district can be a little different and with different concerns. And that's why you've got to, like I said, always be listening.
Right. And I will have to wrap up in a moment, but is there anything else you wanted to mention that I didn't hit on or anything else? I feel very fortunate to have this job. Serving these 3 communities is an unbelievable privilege. And one of the things the approach that I take particularly with, Lynn is a small part of my district in particular. But what I like to communicate with Marblehead and Swampscott is that Lynn is very important to the future of Marblehead and Swampscott. I see Lynn as a transportation hub.
a future tech hub, life sciences hub, and the success of Lynn means the success of the whole region. And so I think it's important, as the rep for the district, I see that as the work is weaving together these communities and really promoting us as one.
Mm-hmm. Well, so you don't really have anything else to add to that. I think you summed it up very well, but I want to thank you again for coming on to join us and talk about this.
Come have me back. I would love to see you.
Yes, anytime. And
Thanks.
once again, I'm Dani Vittori. This has been the Lynn Lowdown, and we'll see you next week with more guests. On deck, the sports update. Sean Driscoll, the St. Mary's football head coach, got his 100th victory in a comeback 15-14 win over Winthrop. The best part? Driscoll was at the helm for Winthrop for 11 years before moving to Lynn. A fumble recovery in the third and a safety off an errant snap with 5 minutes remaining in the game gave St. Mary's the spark they needed to drive down the field and score the game-winning touchdown. The Peabody Tanners scored 24 unanswered points in the second half to take down Classical 31-14, moving the Rams to 1-1. Classical did have the 8-0 lead in the first, but only scored once more for the rest of the game. A 26-0 shutout by Lynn Tech football was led by Cesar Reyes, who scored twice, with two other Tigers scoring a touchdown apiece to round out the scoring. The Tigers were the away team, but had no problem running all over the Chelsea team, boosting their record to 2-0. Kip Academy bounced back from last week with a commanding 36-0 win against Boston Latin. 30 of their 38 points were recorded in the second quarter, including Joven Manchando scoring 2 of his 3 touchdowns. Manchando rushed for 110 total yards, followed closely by teammate Morinel Castro with 105 yards and 1 touchdown. For boys soccer, English tied with Everett 3-3, coming back from an early 2-0 deficit. In girls soccer, St. Mary's is now 3-1 after taking down non-league rival Pentucket 2-0 at home. Goalie Kylie Kenson had 5 saves in the victory. Spartan boys soccer remains undefeated, blanking Danvers 3-0. 3 different St. Mary's players scored, and their defense remains strong, having not allowed a single goal in the first 3 games of the regular season. The Rams are in a similar position as their volleyball team sits at 5-0 after winning again in straight sets over Wilmington, then again against Everett on the 18th. For an inter-city rivalry, Kip captured a thriller over Tech, winning 3 of 5 sets. Despite being the away team, Kip won the first set by 13 points. The Tigers didn't make it that easy for them, though, battling back to force a 5th set when the Panthers ultimately won 15-12. Lynn Tech girls soccer fought hard against the Minutemen, but ultimately fell short 4-1. The Tigers held a 1-0 lead going into halftime off a goal by Rose Mendez, but the Minutemen notched 3 goals in the final 20 minutes of the game after getting off to a quick start in the second half. Tech dominated in meets against the Minutemen with both their girls and boys teams winning. The boys pulled out a narrow 28-27 victory, while the girls had a little more breathing room with a 31-26 victory. Both the Classical and St. Mary's golf teams were victorious in their respective matches. The Rams topped Everett 48-24, moving to 2-1 on the season. Braden Curley won his match 6.5 to 2.5, and Omar Mendina held a strong 7-2 finish. For the Spartans, they are perfect in their conference, besting Arlington Catholic 193-156. The Red Sox are mostly out of the playoff race, but are still trying to make the best of this season. They dropped 2 of 3 against a strong Texas Rangers team on the road, winning the first game 4-2 before losing the next 2 6-4 and 15-5. For the first time since 2001, the New England Patriots are 0-2 to start the season. Their latest game with division rival Miami Dolphins saw much of the same as the first week. An interception on the goal line and penalties at crucial times limited their offense to only 3 points in the first half. They again tried to make a last-minute surge, but failed to convert on a 4th and 4, falling by a score of 27-20. Next up on the lowdown, the principal planner for Lynn stopped by to give an update on several projects happening around the city, including Vision Lynn. Here is the lowdown. Good afternoon and welcome back to the Lynn Lowdown. I'm Dani Vittori, and today we have on Aaron Clausen, the principal planner for the City of Lynn. Thanks for coming back on the show.
Hi, Dani. Thank you. Thanks for having me back.
Great. So, we got to talk about the big thing, the Vision Lynn, which is the city's first comprehensive plan. So, you've been working on it now for a year and a half. Why do you think it's so important for Lynn to have something like this?
Yeah, sure. It has been an 18-month experience for us, an all-hands-on-deck project. But comprehensive plans, are oftentimes called master plans in communities, are really important for the community to establish and identify what the city wants to be in 25 years. Establish a vision for the future state of the community. And a comprehensive plan like ours are really, it's not just the plan itself, but it's the process in developing the plan. Mm-hmm. So in doing so, there's all this engagement, and in our case, we had thousands of engagements with community members, stakeholders, with online surveys, engaging in person, open houses, to establish what that vision is. Cities are complicated places. There's a lot of different interests in moving parts and variables. And so having that opportunity to put a stake in the ground and say, this is what the community wants to be, and here's how we're going to get there is really important for a city like ours to manage its growth in a way that benefits residents and businesses.
Oh, yeah. So now that you've taken all of that engagement analysis, what did you sort of come up with? What seemed to be the major points?
Yeah, so the vision that was established with the community really says that the city, for residents, they want a place that they can live, work, play, and learn in a safe environment. They're looking for social connections, community engagement across communities, and an openness and access among our community and throughout the community. And then sort of the third element is about sort of physical connections, that people have access to jobs, to housing, accessible transportation, open space, and recreation. So we're weaving all those things together. It's an aspirational statement for sure, but the plan establishes 20+ strategies that we can sort of move forward on to achieve that vision. The plan itself is really framed around land use and urban form. We've really taken that concept, the vision statement, and articulated it in a sort of a future development perspective. So much of the plan revolves around that. And it comes out of sort of 3 key things that we heard in the engagement. And when we were digging into the data, what we found, and one of them is housing continues to be a key need for the city, and affordable housing across ranges of income. So building housing in places that's accessible is really important, while maintaining other quality of life issues like open space and access to recreation. The second thing we heard from the community, and it was also borne out in the data, was that there's a need to provide more and better access to jobs and economic opportunity within the community. So how do we do that? We help by growing more jobs, commercial and industrial base in the city, so that people have options and have options to do that within the city without traveling outside of the city. And then the third one, it wasn't really a direct comment that we heard from the community, but in the engagement we hear a lot about improved schools, improved open space and parks and recreation, improved transportation, public safety and services that the city typically provides, any city in the Commonwealth would provide. But what we found is that our tax base is imbalanced. It is too sort of focused on housing. And so that as we think about future development, we need to rebalance that and ensure that we're attracting more commercial and industrial. And by doing so, we're strengthening and creating more resilient tax base and creating revenue for those services, those desires that the community had expressed, but also for the job opportunities. As we're growing the commercial and industrial base, we're also producing jobs here. So those were some of the key things that we heard in that process. And I would just say, the plan then lays out a short-term implementation strategy, not a huge laundry list of things the city can do, but very targeted and specific so that we can start moving immediately towards meeting those objectives.
And both the city council and the planning board unanimously voted to approve the plan. So clearly, you really adopted what the community wants doing that.
Yeah, no, and I appreciate you bringing that up. I mean, I think for me, in the planning department, working closely with Lauren Drago on this, we really wanted to make sure that the process was collaborative. Mm-hmm. I mean, from the beginning, we had a 30-person advisory committee and helping us understand how do we engage the community the best way, help us driving that engagement. But we also collaborated with departments within the city hall, the city council, and the boards and commissions. We wanted it to feel like they were vested in the plan. So yes, at the end of June, we had both unanimous approvals from the council and the planning board. So that's gratifying. But I think it's important because it shows that the document, the plan itself as a policy document, has political support. And that's really the critical piece for implementation.
Yeah, definitely. And the plan itself, you said roughly 20, 25 years. That's a long time to look out. But you were mentioning there's some immediate specific actions that the plan can start pretty much almost like right now.
Yeah, absolutely. There are in the way we approach the implementation plan, we broke that out in a series of sections that were based on infrastructure. So transportation, infrastructure, utilities, open space, et cetera. In the plan itself, we really sort of articulated ongoing work because it's important to acknowledge the work that's been going on in the city for years and acknowledge how that can support what the plan is trying to achieve. And it's important so that we're continuing to do that work and implement that work. But it also identified a number of things that we can do immediately. So some of them that I can just sort of highlight, zoning reform was mentioned as a sort of key next step. And so since the plan is really focused around future development and land use, zoning codes, ordinances which dictate what can be done on a property, what kind of uses can be allowed, how dense those uses can be, sort of the shape and design. Our zoning code is very old and outdated. It's not unique to Lynn. It's a common thing in the Commonwealth. But given that we've gone through this effort and articulated a land use and urban form sort of framework, the next step is to take and create a zoning code that aligns with that and really carries out that objective. So that's a key first step. Some others we identified in the plan that are sort of ongoing efforts. So continuing to build affordable housing as we also welcome in new market rate housing, coastal resiliency, how do we make our shorelines more resilient to sea level rise, focusing and supporting the transformation of the waterfront, also a key area. So these are some of the areas that we keyed in on. And so one of the things I can talk about is we submitted an application for funding to the state economic and housing and economic development secretariat to support with what we call a zoning reform. This would be a complete rewrite. Fingers crossed is something that we will hear about in the next couple months, but we would then start a process to rezone that over the next probably 12 months. So that's sort of a big activity that we can do together. The other one is the waterfront transformation. I mentioned that we identified priority development areas in the city, and we sort of categorize them by sort of a transformed district and an enhanced district. The idea being that in a transformed district, we're intentionally trying to create change that on the other end of that effort, it's going to be a completely different place. And the waterfront's the best example of that. Taking sort of a post-industrial auto-oriented waterfront and making it more accessible, walkable, where we got jobs, we got activity, housing, et cetera. So we're continuing that work that's been sort of laid, probably starting in 2017, with the South Harbor implementation plan. And so it's taking the vision that was created with the waterfront master plan that was completed around 2019, and expanding that geographically to look at everything from the Saugus River to Blossom Street along the waterfront. So the former Gearworks site, the Lynn Mart site that's under construction now, and that whole area, and dig in a little bit deeper to think about what are the infrastructure improvements that we need to facilitate that transformation, and dig in a little bit deeper in terms of street networks and land uses and the type of buildings that we want to achieve that land use framework we talked about, that introduces a mix of housing with job opportunities. That can feed into a number of different things. It's literal investment in roadways, transit, working with MBTA and MassDOT to make sure we're eventually getting the full access to the Riverworks commuter rail station. And that work can also inform the zoning code amendment too. So how do we design that? So that's work that we're kicking off right now. I expect we'll have some engagement with the community later this fall, looking at some scenarios, getting feedback, and it's a really relatively quick hit, but it's something that we're hoping to have a plan completed by next spring.
Yeah, you just keep going.
Yeah, well, the comprehensive plan is the beginning, not the end.
Oh, definitely.
There are plenty of plans that go on the shelf and nothing happens. That is the last thing that we wanted. The only other thing I wanted to sort of highlight, as we were engaging with the community, we heard a lot about the downtown, and there's a lot of support for investment in the downtown. And it is our sort of what I would call our preeminent enhanced district. So it's a place that we see as an opportunity for growth, but the downtown and the character of the downtown needs to really shape how that future growth happens. So that means when we're done, although we're never really truly done, when we're done with this stage of that work, that investment, people will recognize the downtown. They'll recognize the scale of it, the walkability of it, the sort of the mix of uses, it being sort of the neighborhood for all the community, a regional destination. So it's our preeminent enhanced district. One of the first things we're biting off is to complete a comprehensive parking plan for the downtown, because we did hear a lot about concerns around access to parking. And we think there's a very good opportunity to take that public resource and manage it better, and ensuring people have access to the downtown for cars, but for all users too. And for me, and from my perspective, what's really important about parking is it's not just about parking. How we treat parking and how we sort of accommodate that for residents and businesses can truly affect the livability of our downtown. So just a parking garage on the main street is not the best thing. But if we can site the parking garage in a way and we can activate the ground floor, if we can sort of hide a garage within other development projects, we can create that resource without sort of degrading the pedestrian environment. That great urban form that we have in our downtown that we want to supplant. So that planning process should be beginning in the fall. We just are going through the procurement to hire a consultant to do that work. Again, like the South Harbor implementation plan, our goal is to have that completed by spring, summer of next year.
So you still have many things going on, so many plans, so many projects. And I know I have to wrap up in a second, but I want to say thank you again for coming on to talk about it. Was there anything else that you wanted to highlight with the plan? Yeah, no, thank you, Dani. It's always a pleasure to come on and talk about the work we're doing. My one last comment would be to please stay engaged with the comprehensive plan. Even though it is a document, it is finished. Our way of looking at it is that it's a living document, it's a living policy, and I would encourage the community, if you're interested, to stay engaged and go to linncommunitytv.com to the Vision Lynn project page, where we will continue to provide updates on the plan itself, our implementation work plan
on a year-to-year basis as that evolves. And then all these other projects that I just mentioned, the South Harbor Improvement Plan, the parking plan, and the zoning form, all that will be available there. So you can stay tuned and keep engaged, because we always will have engagement built into these processes as we go forward.
Definitely. Well, you heard it here first, all about the new engagement and things happening in Lynn. I'm Dani Vittori. This has been the Lynn Lowdown, and we'll see you next week with more guests. Now, the community calendar. The Clock to the Rock 5K is back and being presented by EDIC and the City of Lynn on Thursday the 28th. The race begins at Central Square and goes along the Lynn and Swampscott coast before circling back to the square. There is a $30 registration fee, with racers having the option to pre-register or register the day of the event beginning at 4:30 p.m. The race itself starts at 6 p.m., with winners receiving medals and recognition. From noon to 9 p.m. on the 30th, the Keep Moving Forward Music Festival will take over Frederick Douglass Park. Hosted by Mr. PSA, there will be a discussion about 50 years of hip-hop in addition to performances all afternoon. Local artists will have the chance to showcase their talent and inspire the next generation of musicians and artists in Lynn. Also on the 30th, rescheduled from the 23rd, Stop the Violence, Lynn Committee, and Lynn Mothers Against Violence are sponsoring a march to end gun violence. It will begin at 1 p.m. at the Memorial Ave concession stand and end at City Hall. That is all the news for this week. To stay up to date on all that is happening in the city, follow us at Lynn Community Television. For staff and member videos and promos, go to Lynn Community Television on YouTube. And visit linntv.org for a complete community calendar, press releases, and news. I'm Dani Vittori, this is LCTV News, and we will see you next week.